Welcome. Welcome. Hello. Making sure you're there. Soya, what makes you happy? Food. I just thought, I always wonder how I'm going to start talking, and I just saw snacks up there, and I think we share the same love of snacks, maybe. Okay, well, welcome to this evening's Bridge Talks. My name is Dale Smith. I'm head of creation for Bridge. I just wanted to do a little quick intro, getting everybody thinking about happiness for a moment, and then I'm going to pass you over to Nick Marks, who's our guest presenter tonight. I actually was quite intrigued by Nick's talk and seeing his TED Talk. And that's been on my mind, well, literally ever since I've seen it, but especially over the last couple of weeks. Because I'm always trying to think of what am I going to say when I stand up here. Because happiness is, I think, something that we take for granted sometimes. And we forget to ask ourselves what makes us happy. So the thing I've been actually looking at over the last couple of days, and I've been asking lots of people around me, is really what drives your happiness? What makes you happy? And I actually had to keep spending time asking myself. Because sometimes as we actually go through life, we forget what makes us happy. And how often do you ask that question? Matthew, what makes you happy?
It evolves through time, doesn't it?
Yeah, but what makes you happy?
5 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
it's different to what makes you happy these days.
You did the same thing my mother did. You avoided the question.
I actually don't know.
You don't know? Great. Okay. Colin, what makes you happy?
Don't have a good answer for you.
No? Okay, good. Well, these are the questions we need to be asking ourselves. It's a tough question. And I actually never realized how hard the question was until I actually started asking people. What drives happiness in myself? What drives it in other people? Because until I actually ask that first question, can I ever really get under the surface of what makes me happy? And things like goals and ambition and all of these things are words that I can start to use. So I went actually back to the beginning of Bridge, when I first set up Bridge about 10 years ago. And what drove my happiness was the fact that I began to understand what I truly wanted to do and create an organization that represented my ideas and my thoughts. And one of the key things that we used to always talk about in Bridge was turning words into actions. And I had to go all the way back to the beginning of Bridge, of what made Bridge, why was I driven by happiness in the early days of Bridge, that sometimes I maybe are more challenged by with the complexity of Bridge. And as I actually went through mine and other people's words, I asked a lot of people what drove their happiness. And I got words like friends and learning and travel and goals, respect, kindness, love. Music was a really interesting one for me. Because I don't really listen to that much music. But every time I do, I realize actually how much I love it. And how much it makes me happy. And I actually then began to question myself and say, why don't you do things more that drive your own happiness? My playlist is embarrassing, and some people in this room might help me fix it. Yes, I have all the Glee soundtracks. But I love music, and I often don't listen to it. And I was listening to it today. I started very early this morning with a client, and I had to put on my music, and I was a couple of sad songs in there, and I had to find something that actually gave me stride and hustle and strut. So when I walked in that client, I wasn't feeling like the sleepy guy I really wanted to be. I wanted to be happy when I entered their property. So you think about what drives your happiness, because you actually have more control of your own happiness by at first understanding what it is that makes you happy. Other ones like you see down here, goosebumps. That's a very funny word that that's become very much part of my vocabulary. I spent pretty much all of last year working with a client in Palm Beach in Florida by the name of O. It's a 5-star hotel and spa, and one of their values in their organization is goosebumps. It's quite whimsical and funny as a word, but it's the one thing that drives happiness in their culture, was to create goosebumps for others. Not just make other people happy, make them tingle, make them feel. And that's really what drives part of their culture as an organization. Does anybody want to guess who this is?
Your mother.
My mother. Now, anybody who knows me and listens to any of my talks, I often bring up my mother at some point. And yes, I am a mummy's boy. Okay, I got it. I'm not getting away from it. I am, and I'm turning more into my mother every day, but I am my mother's son. And I often use bits of things that she's taught me in talks that I do, and I often use her as a reference point. So I don't plan these talks that I'm doing right now days in advance. I kind of plan it as I go through the day that I'm going to do it. So as I was getting on the underground about 4 o'clock, I called my mother and asked her that one question. And very much like you just answered, Matt, I was very surprised. Because I'm always guaranteed no matter what my mother answers me, I can use it somewhere. And I called her up, and after she finished telling me about the cat and the vet and the cost, so I managed to finally break her off that subject and say, Mom, I really want to ask you an important question. And she said, okay. And I said, well, I want to know, what makes you happy? And she couldn't answer. And she tried to divert the answer, going, well, it's different for everybody. And I said, no, Mom, seriously, I'm getting on the underground. Hurry this thing up. I got a talk to do. I need to know what makes you happy. So a little pressure on her. And she said to me, in her own words, you know what? I don't know. No one's ever asked me that. Now, this is a 75-year-old woman. I hope she never sees this video and listens to that. You can't cut that out. But this is my mom, and nobody ever asked her what made her happy. And I got into the underground. I said, I'm going to call you back at the other end because I need your answer because I'm going to use it tonight. And as I sat on the underground, I realized she gave me the answer I needed. How do we make other people happy if we don't ask them? How do we, as organizational specialists who deal in culture, go into cultures and try to drive happiness in businesses if we sometimes just forget the most important part and ask them what makes them happy? Because when I came out of the underground and I spoke to my mom again, her answer was, well, before I give you an answer, I have to tell you, it's different for everybody. You know that. Thank you, Mom. I did guess. And then she began to tell me maybe what makes her happy. But she felt a little uncomfortable because that was the first time anybody had taken the time to ask her. And I think of all the gifts I've given her in my life that probably didn't make her happy because I actually chose them because I liked them and maybe not asked her what she would have liked. So I want you to think about that because when I thought of asking my mom, she gave me the answer I really truly needed. It wasn't about what made her happy. It was that I forgot to ask her that in all the time I've known her. And we've worked on various projects, and I want to show you because, one, a very short clip with the O crowd in Palm Beach in Florida. We did a whole year campaign with them, and we spent a lot of time talking about happiness. But like my mom said, happiness is different things to different people. And this is just some of them being happy and just letting loose.
Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
So we spent a whole year working with this organization, but to me that just brings everything into one 30-second frame for me. When we started with that organization, they were a little disjointed. They had lost some of their way because they were a brand new brand. But by spending time working with them, they actually found true happiness in everything that they did. And that's where that word goosebump came from, as one of their pure drivers of the culture they were creating, was they were driven by the great things that they could do for other people and each other. Another little snapshot of who I was with today. We were spending one of our other clients, and if anybody might have come to David Marshall's talk from HJE, he was one of our BridgeTalk speakers last year, and he spoke a lot about the organization and the service excellence program that we've been working with. But this was an exercise that we finished off with last year. And one of the things, so less whimsical and fun, but one of the things that we worked with this organization on last year was we've got a creative artist to come in, and we just spent creative time asking them what drives happiness in their organization. What would it look like if you made a poster out of it? And by asking them what drove happiness or what drove success and what drove excellence within their business, this is a collection of the 30-odd posters that were created in the various sessions. But by simply taking what they were saying and trying to use that as a translation point from an artist's perspective. And that's really what we were looking at today. And so because I wanted to be really fresh for this evening, I began to ask people that I was working with today about what drove them. What drives not only happiness, but excellence. That strive for success in everything they do. Now, they're a private hospital, and so they have some advantages of a private hospital, but they also have other disadvantages because the level of expectation is so high when you're one of their patients. And so this was their articulation over a period of time of what it feels like to be successful in their organization. And what we really determined by working with various populations is one thing that drives true happiness with people and cultures, that freedom of choice. That little bit of freedom that allows us to be a participant, or what I call an organizational citizen. Somebody that is a participant in the business and has freedom of choice. And I often ask people, if I gave you any, I'm going to give you the magic stick that says you can do whatever you want in that organization that you think will drive happiness. And I get a lot of people giving some very big ideas. But what drives true happiness is understanding what your sphere of influence is. We may not be able to make all the big stuff and the big changes, but we all have personal power that sit around everything that we do. And that, to me, drives happiness in people. By actually using some of your own autonomy and your own personal power to actually drive change and drive success around you. But that's another question we have to ask ourselves. Where do I hold the power? Because often people will go away and and I think we've all done it. A bad day at work and you want to talk either your housemate or your partner or your husband or wife or your friend to death. You want to tell them all the things that you would have done differently? As opposed to maybe asking ourselves the question is, what part could I have played that would have drove some happiness? The other one is that strive to be better. To really set more goals for ourselves. The other day, I was swimming, and this was the start of me thinking about this talk. Now, normally, I need to get back swimming some more, carrying a little holiday weight. I'm just not sure which holiday it's from, but it's, But I was swimming, and normally I'll get in the pool and I'll do 20 or 30 lengths, and I'm happy with that. I've ticked the box. But I don't think it's ever made me happy in the last few years when I go swimming. I do it because I need to, or I do it because I should. And this time I did something different. I actually did 10 lengths and stopped. And then I thought about it. And then I did another 10. And another 10. And then I was really excited that I got to 30. And then I did 40. And then I did 50, which was my personal best on a normal swim. And I thought, well, if I can do 50, it's only 10 more, I could do 60. And then I was pushing myself, and I had a little paper clip somewhere in the pool that I was using as my 5 marker. And a 7 marker was further up. And then I got to 60, 70, and then I might as well do 80, that's 2 kilometers. And then I figured I like round numbers, so let's do 100. Now, I've never swam that far before. But it was simply by setting a goal and then being so happy that I could exceed it. But I had to make it measurable. I had to actually start and do it in bite-sized chunks. Because when I just do what I normally do, run in and just keep going until I run out of steam, I don't think I ever experienced happiness. What I did experience was true happiness when I got out of the pool, and I actually did that thing that I'm really annoyed by my friends when they do it as Facebook people. Let me tell you all about it on Facebook. But I really wanted to tell somebody about it. Where sometimes I look at those people who tell me about things on Facebook and I think, do I really care? No, that's because I'm looking at it through my eyes. But it's about when we actually experience true happiness by something we've achieved, by stretching our boundaries or pushing ourselves. Personal happiness is that's where I got it from. And then the last one to really focus on is to have a deeper sense of purpose. Why do we do what we do? Why do we get up in the morning? Now, something that I've been doing for many, many years, and it was a gift from a consultant who said, find your waking up time in the morning. Because when I make my coffee in the morning, don't come near me. I get up, I'm a bear, I get up, I make my coffee, I turn on Bloomberg, and I watch the news, and nothing really is making me happy there. But when I get in the shower in the morning, and that's my private time where I can just think, that's when I choose how happy I'm going to be. Because nobody else can interrupt that for me. And that's when I make that choice. And I spend a lot of time what I call my purpose model. Why am I going into today? What am I going to do about today? And so really think about that. Because when we're driven by purpose, we often experience a lot happier cultures and a lot happier people. Because a lot of people do jobs. And I'm not always sure that the job is the satisfaction point. But it's the greater purpose that maybe you give others, or you can give back, or you can give yourself. That's the purpose, I believe, that drives happiness. Okay, so that's just a little opening of some of my ideas and some of the things I've experienced today. And for those of you who, have a significant other, or you have somebody like my mom in your life, ask them, what makes you happy? Because then that's the thing that you can begin to utilize to help build better relationships. If your manager's in business, if you have teams, ask them what makes them happy. Our jobs is to translate it into usable information, because some people might go free lunches or more money or whatever. But our jobs is to really find that purpose that drives people. Okay, so when I actually began to look at organizations that we've worked with, that's my kind of summary of what I felt was driving the organizations that I've worked with in the last few years. People who focus on the things that they have within their power. Forgetting about all the things and moaning about all the things that I can't control. Think about, we all start and play, we all have a little ripple effect. And if everybody got up tomorrow and said, today I'm going to do one thing that I think drives happiness, just one little thing. Think about the ripple effect that creates outwardly into the world, in either your businesses or your friends or family. By making that conscious choice of when I wake up tomorrow, what is the one thing that I have the power to do that might make somebody else happier or myself happier? And you have the power by asking yourself the right question. And it doesn't have to be big, because ripple effects start from the smallest pebble. People who focus on standards and attention to detail, that makes good into great. So realizing that 30 lengths in the pool for me was good. 50 was even great. But when I actually hit a personal best, that's when I really could feel that I actually had achieved something. Because I'd gone beyond any boundary that I'd ever considered doing. And I actually did it simply by just putting it in bite-sized chunks. Because it was Sunday, and I said to myself, honestly, Dale, you've got nothing planned for the next few hours. So why are you not being less mindful? Why are you getting into the pool to get out of the pool? So it took me an hour and a half. But I achieved something in the hour and a half where I probably wouldn't if I wasn't mindful that I didn't need to have the pressure of time at that particular moment. What I should have been driven by was the success that I was going to be able to achieve. And then people with a strong sense of vision and emotional connection to their roles in organizations. And that's simply by not just having jobs, because we all can have a job. But what is that one thing that gives you purpose within that role? And again, I can't answer that for you. Only we can answer those questions for ourselves. And so that's my encouragement to you, following Nick's talk. He's going to give some great insight into both happiness and good numbers and making it a serious business, because it is a serious business, both when you're a manager in organizations, and it's a serious business for ourselves, because we all have more power to drive our happiness if we ask the right questions. Okay? So, who else? One more person who wants to tell me what makes happiness. Lovely lady in red.
Balance in life.
Balance?
And sunshine and good relationships.
Wonderful. Isn't sunshine a wonderful motivator?
It is. Really it is.
It really is.
Yes.
And for those of you who live in London, and I'm going to any city, but I love London. When it's sunny in the summer, it comes alive. It's vibrant. I mean, that's only because I'm a Londoner. But I notice it. When the sun comes out, it's like the world turns up. So it's where do we find sunshine? It's not always in the sun, it's where we can create it. A lot of people are very products of their environment. Very kinesthetic by nature, but products of their environment. We thrive on the energy around us, and some more than others. You know, one of my previous talks, and then I'm going to pass over to Nick, but one of my previous talks was around innovation and about the loss of great ideas. When people have a great idea and other people steal it and say, oh, it's a bad idea, never worked, never happened. You know, I think most of the greatest innovations in our lives have never even happened because somebody stole it from us by saying it's not a good idea. And so we do it to ourselves. You know, sometimes you just have to jump in with both feet and see, and you'll be surprised actually what happiness can come. But that's also from challenging and striving. Okay, so well, thank you for listening to me. And I'm going to pass you over to Nick Marks, who is our guest presenter tonight. And I'm going to have Nick give his own introduction so that I can hear more about you as well.
Thank you.
You can take the stage.